It's Thursday, which means, of course, that it's time for the best movie podcast ever. The only movie podcast that features nothing but objective and completely hyperbole-free. See, Anthony celebrating the fact that this is hyperbole-free. Now I've lost my train of thought. Podcast, that's what we are, that discusses every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, he's a clever girl, it's Anthony James. Anthony,
good afternoon. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'm doing very, very well. It's 2021. All my problems are solved.
It is. We're gonna party. That song doesn't make sense for this, actually. And also, okay, so we're just going to take a little segue out of the film discussion for a moment here, listeners. So bear with us.
We were never in it.
No, we didn't. No, we never got there. Sorry.
Yeah,
well, you know, you'll enjoy this segue. Just trust me on this one. When you listen to those kind of to songs like that, like "We're Gonna Party Like It's 1999," does your mind immediately go to the Will Smith covers of them?
No, I did. Did he cover that?
Well, he took a sample of Rock the Casbah and I think mixed it with some Rick James stuff to make Millennium, which is which is where my mind immediately goes when I listen to that song.
No, to be honest with you, but now you've put in my head. Whoa, get over now, you know.
Hello and welcome to the Will Smith podcast. We've changed the theme.
Pursuit of Happiness, great film.
There's a couple in there. Maybe they're going to turn up in this movie diary, which is what this week is, where we talk about everything we've seen since the last time we did one of these. So it's going to be less than the several thousand that we talked about last week. If you didn't listen last week, you missed out because we discussed literally every film we've ever seen.
Yeah. All 10 of them.
Yeah, we're not actually that into movies, unfortunately. We're charlatans.
Yeah. So
before we get into that, I'm just going to briefly mention that in next week's show, we are not going to be doing a movie diary. We're going to be doing another themed episode. It's going to be hopefully quite lighthearted, given some of the news around this topic. It might be about an insurrection. Who can say? There might be a military dictatorship in place by the time
we'll find. I think we'll find by the time this episode comes out on Thursday. They're supposed to be sorting it out on Wednesday, so maybe that's when we'll know.
Yeah. Well, no, maybe we'll not do it. Maybe it'll feel in poor taste. But as it stands, next week's episode is going to be a themed episode on movie presidents, and you're not going to want to miss that one. It's either going to be a light-hearted jape, or it's going to be a welcome distraction from the nightmare world that America has become. Let's find out.
Obviously, if you're not up to speed on American politics, the reason why we're going to be doing that is because Joe Biden will hopefully be being inaugurated as the president on the 21st, I think, of this month, which is between next week's podcast and the next. So that's why we're going to be doing it. The American presidential inauguration. Exactly.
Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun. Aside from that, please subscribe to us on YouTube, on podcasting apps. Give us a like. Join in the conversation down in the comments below. Let us know what you've been watching this week and what you think of the movies that we're going to talk about in a second. And share the show with your friends. The word of mouth really does us good. But without further ado, I say it's time to talk about some movies. What do you think?
I would agree.
Anthony, how many movies have you watched this week?
Movies that I decided to sit down and watch, I watched 3. If you want to talk about all the films I watched with my children, that's probably up in the 20s.
No, we don't count family time.
Okay.
On this podcast.
Don't count family time. Okay.
No, children aren't allowed to enjoy movies.
That's true. 3 movies I have this week.
Okay, well, so I had a busy week in terms of movie watching. So unfortunately, listener, if you hate me, which let's be fair, it's reasonably possible that that's the case, you're going to hear a lot of me in this episode.
Well, Konrad, I, based on the responses from us changing to the Culture Cave and you coming on board, it seems like they hated me. they're nice. So pleased that you are now a big voice in the channel.
Well, if you're part of, you know, the Conrad group and are supporting this insurrection.
Oh my god!
I didn't think I would mention the word insurrection twice in the first 50 minutes of this podcast, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly. But I will also say that was all in jest. I'm very happy to have Konrad here. I'm in no way jealous that there are so many women in America who want to go out with him. We never actually mentioned that before. Did you pick up on that comment that was put there?
No, I didn't, but that's very flattering.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a comment particularly mentioning all the American women with the hots for Konrad.
Well, I went to America when I was 11.
And
I
you were
went to
batting
Florida.
away. You were batting away.
And a lady in a bar in the hotel that I was staying at in Florida told me that I should come back when I was older because all the girls would like my accent. I still haven't done that, but who knows? You know, I know. I love my partner very much, but that's very flattering. Thank you. This is now me like, got to get out of this. How do I do it? I watched 9 movies, and that's what we're here to talk about.
9 movies. That's 3 times. That's my movies
one of them
squared.
was almost it is, and one of my movies was almost 4 hours long as well, which we'll get to in time. But I think, in the interest of giving the listeners a break from me talking, I reckon we start with you. So what do you say?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. We can start with me. Get one of my 3 out of the way.
Yeah.
Hopefully I've seen some of your ones, but I'm sure I have. But all right, so let's start talking about movies. We're probably about 10 minutes into this now. Let's start. Okay, so first one I watched. I'm going to start with a really interesting one, actually. You put me in the mood last week talking about Extraction. You put me in the mood for a bit of action.
Okay.
So I watched a film that I've been meaning to watch for a while. Is Luc Besson's Lucy.
Oh, nice. I've never seen this.
Yeah, so, it wasn't the most critically acclaimed of Luc Besson's films. It also wasn't the most stylistic of Luc Besson's films, because, in the past, he has a very particular style. I'm thinking of Fifth Element mostly, where even the Fifth Element was very interesting, because I think they had Gautier was the actual costume designer for that, so it gave it a real whereas Lucy, to be honest with you, before even doing a bit of research about the film before watching it, I didn't even realize Luc Besson directed it, but I've always sort of intended it. We talked a little bit about Scarlett Johansson last week, and sort of her choosing to sort of take her career by the scruff of the neck, and I didn't view this film as that, but I do now, because it's Luc Besson, and let me tell you, it gets weird. So basically, the setup for the film is that trope of science fiction films, which is absolute bollocks, but we'll go with it. Humans only use 10% of their brains.
Oh, yeah.
What happens if we unlock the rest? Right? Yeah. Which is interesting, because I think this did come out around the same time as Limitless with Bradley Cooper. So
that's the same. That's drugs, though, isn't it? He takes a drug and it like unlocks his brain.
Yeah, well, that's the same as this. So,
okay.
Basically, it's set up in. Well, she didn't mean to take him. That's the thing. The setup for this film is that she's tricked by a boyfriend to go in and deliver drugs to a big kingpin. Now, the boyfriend didn't know this, I'm pretty sure, but basically they took her hostage, put some drugs in her surgically, and then through happenstance, the drugs went into her system, and they caused her to start accessing parts of her brain she couldn't before. Now, obviously, we all know, just to explain, I don't know if you're ever listening here, why that trope in science fiction films of 10% of your brain is bollocks. The reason why it's bollocks is because, I'm also saying bollocks a lot because I know we have listeners from all over the world, and I think they'll enjoy the word bollocks. But the reason why
bollocks.
Bollocks.
I have to say it.
The reason, Vinnie Jones. Bollocks. The reason why it's bollocks is because we do use 100% of our brain. We just use 10% of it at a time. And a mutual friend of Konrad and mine, called Sam, he had a really good analogy for this. And he said, it's like your house. You don't use all of the rooms in your house at the same time, okay? But it doesn't mean you don't use all the rooms in your house.
It depends on what kind of like bacchanalian existence you
Well, let me just say this. If you were able to use the bathroom and the kitchen at the same time, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to fly.
Yes, that's true. That's where the analogy falls down.
Yeah.
I've just had a look at this movie because I don't know this movie. The last Luc Besson movies the only Luc Besson movies I've ever seen are Leon and The Fifth Element, which are both really good movies. But this has Choi Min-sik in it, who is the protagonist from
Old Boy,
the original Old Boy, which is very cool. And then on the other end of the spectrum, and maybe this is an unfair. This is a mischaracterization of this actor, but the only thing I've seen him in, I fucking hated him, is Pilu Asbak, who is from Game of Thrones, who is like shitty Jack Sparrow as one. I've forgotten his name now. Euron Greyjoy.
He plays Euron Greyjoy, and I want to fuck the Queen. That guy.
Yeah, it's just he's the worst. But that's two interesting casting decisions.
Well, and also this is back in 2014, so this role might have actually been what got him into Game of Thrones. But basically. Unless he's big in something else that we're not sure. Was he in Vikings or something? Maybe. But
I haven't seen him in Vikings yet. I'm only up to season 3 though, so
oh, he could turn up. So
maybe.
basically, I would say that he's just to let you know as well. He's the boyfriend from the start, so he doesn't play a huge role. If I'm completely honest with you, in the show. No, it's to be honest with you, it's a really interesting film. Obviously, the casting is interesting as well. I will say that Choi Min-sik is amazing in it. This is the thing about Luc Besson, which is slightly like when I first saw this film in Netflix and put it on my list, I thought it was like you got me in the mood for like just an action film. To be honest with you, I didn't even know it was about like unlocking your brain. I didn't even know it was about that. But basically, when I started watching it, the fact that Choi Min-sik was in it, I've seen Old Boy. I absolutely love that long take from the side of him beating up everyone in the corridor.
Cross section of the corridor with a hammer is very cool.
You know, he almost matches up to Josh Brolin's performance, but almost.
We can't even joke about that. Like, we'll get hate mail.
Yeah, was that Spike Lee?
I think it might have been Spike Lee. Yeah, I to be honest, I'm judging that movie. I never watched it. For me, it takes an awful lot to get me to watch a Western remake of a non English language film, because my gut reaction is just, actually there's one in my list of films this week, but my gut reaction whenever anyone does that is, you fucking ruined this film, haven't you? I know you have.
Hang on, you're telling me you didn't watch Death Note?
No, I did not watch Death Note. I also didn't watch Attack on Titan, although those were Japanese, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no, the Death Note one had Will Ferrell.
Sorry, I was talking about
Will Ferrell.
Death Note is not Will Ferrell. Yeah. Death Note's Japanese, but I actually it's an anime. So this is the
no, but the film, I mean.
Oh, the films as well. Yeah. Oh yeah, is it a Korean?
It's Willem Dafoe is in that. So
yeah, Willem Dafoe's in the Western make. Yeah. But yeah, like to be quite honest here, just to give my thought on that Death Note remake. I actually didn't hate it, but it was like, I don't know, like a 5 out of 10. But the thing about it is that they changed it to be more American. So it's like whenever Spielberg wanted to do Harry Potter, and they said to him, and he's like, I want to do it in an American high school. And they were like, fuck off, Steven, right? So like it's like that, but this time they said yes. So that's what it's like, which I didn't hate. And then everyone was like complaining online saying, it's completely different. It's like, well, what if it was the exact same? Why on earth would you want to watch it, right?
Yeah, I mean, why
do you want to watch the same thing twice?
I go back and forth on remake. I don't know how you feel about this, but like on one hand, if someone remakes something, so there's a Dario Argento, who's like an Italian horror maker from the 80s, Dario Argento movie called Suspiria, which is about witches in a ballet school in Germany. Okay. And they remade that quite recently with Dakota Johnson, who was in the 50 Shades of Grey movie. And it's very different. I mean, it's like kind of the broad plot strokes are the same, but like it feels very different. It's shot very differently, and like the kind of nuances of the script are very different. And that to me, I was like, oh, that's a really cool remake, because you've basically you've done something really different with this movie, which I think is how you should do a remake. But then on the other, that's sort of a double-edged sword, because when you get something like Ghost in the Shell, where they're like, we're going to remake this, but we're going to cast, Scarlett Johansson as the supposedly Japanese protagonist, it's like, okay, you've made this different, but
she
not
was
in
an android. She was an android.
Yeah, she was an android. That's
I
true.
will say like that one. To be honest with you, is a stretch. I think she should have been a Japanese actress, but I will say, where I didn't agree with all the hullabaloo was in the Dragon Ball film, which to be honest with you, I never saw, but everyone was complaining about Goku. Yeah, I didn't watch it, but everyone was complaining about Goku not being Japanese. It's like, he's from Seiya. Like, he's
a Saiyan. Yeah,
he's not a human. Like, why does he landed with, like, he had a tail? Like, why does he need to be Japanese?
Yeah, I mean the main problem with that movie was it was fucking garbage rather than the casting. But yeah.
Anyway, I was just gonna finish off on Lucy. We can move on.
Go on. Bringing it back.
I'm just bringing it back in. So basically, Lucy. One of the reasons why I really enjoyed it was because as she unlocks her brain, right? It's sort of the whole film is punctuated with shots of like wildlife and nature, because it's the whole idea is it's like her connecting back into nature or whatever. And as she sort of goes when she's like only 20% of her brain, like obviously, as mentioned, it's all bollocks, but it's still good for the film. So 20% of her brain is unlocked. She starts like talking like she can feel every kiss her parents ever put on her face still. And she can remember things from like, she mentions like she can remember the taste of her mother's milk in her mouth, stuff like that, which is really interesting. But then as they go on, as she goes up through, it keeps like showing up on the screen like 20%. 30%, and she changes. She changes as she goes, and I love the character that Scarlett Johansson turns into this. At the start of the film, she's like full of emotion, full of character, real bubbly, I would say. Even though she's gone through horrendous things, you can see that she's a character with a lot of personality. She's like living in Taiwan, and I think she's going to school there, and then like sort of. Basically, they're going to send her back to the drugs in her. But as she goes through and she accesses more of her brain, she starts to become emotionless, cold, calculating. And just the performance from Scarlett Johansson is just amazing, I felt. But basically, I'm not going to say anything more because it does go down certain paths which are really cool. Well, really cool and really interesting. But all I'll say is it gets existential. That's what I'll say. And that's something that I wasn't expecting when I first thought of watching this film. It gets existential. I think it doesn't... Apparently, it took Luc Besson like 10 years to write this film. It's an hour and a half long. And it felt like there needed to be more drafts of it, if I'm honest with you. It felt like he had... like It's funny. I read an interview of him about the film, and he said... I heard about the idea that humans only use 10% of their brain. And I thought, that's a really good concept for a film. And I'm like, Luke, have you ever seen a film before? Like, this is a concept that has been used 100 times. Like, But anyway, so that's Lucy. I thought it was good. It's worth checking out. Is it the best film in the world? No. Is it interesting? And do they try cool things in it? Yeah, they do. Get you thinking.
Yeah, I mean, and, I think Luc Besson... admittedly, I'm not like an expert on his oeuvre to butcher the language of his home country.
What does that mean? Does it mean owl?
Yeah, I think so. But he has a style. This is now going to become a podcast where we just say things in French that we don't actually understand.
I understand l'oiseau.
Oh well, I don't. I'm an Englishman. I don't acknowledge any other languages. But anyway, so Lucy, that sounds cool. Was that on Netflix that you watched that?
I watched it on Netflix. So it's on Netflix in the UK at the minute. Obviously, it varies throughout the world, but you could always buy it. VPN. You could always buy it.
Yeah, you could buy it. Talking about movies that we bought, I'm only going to speak very briefly about this because we've talked about it quite a lot in the last couple of weeks. But I did get around to watching Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Lovely.
Broad thoughts. I thought the plot was a bit convoluted, a bit hard to follow.
Ding, 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 ding.
But the set pieces were very good. The opening reminded me quite a lot of... I don't know if you've ever seen this. Talking about good action movies. Well, it's more of a thriller, really. But the Michael Mann bank robber movie, Heat. Which is
that the one with Pacino and De Niro?
De Niro, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I've seen one scene of it where they're around a diner table or something. That's all I've seen.
Yeah. That's like the first scene that De Niro and Pacino shared. I think, or that might be apocryphal. They may have done one before that, but it reminded me of that just in the sort of pacing and the sound design of the gunfire. But it's good. Yeah, Robert Pattinson is always fun. Some of the action sequences are really good. Enjoyed that. I won't say any more on it because we talked about it a lot, but I think it was a good recommendation. It's not Nolan's best, but it's probably not his worst either, and it's good fun.
It asks questions that are fun, and the set pieces, as you say, some of the set pieces are just great. But I'm glad you didn't hate it. That's all I'll say.
Oh no! I mean, and the plot, as I say, it is convoluted, but it's still fun. It's got some cool twists and turns in it.
Would have been good to see in the cinema. That's what I thought.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Christopher Nolan, if he got his way, would have herded us back into cinemas at gunpoint to get us to watch Tenet.
You've got to experience the cinema.
Yeah. I shot it for IMAX, guys. Yeah. Which he did, to be fair.
I just want to say before we move on, right? And I know me saying this is going to add time to the end, Konrad, and I'm sorry for that. But I purposely didn't watch any Chris Nolan films this week, and I purposely thought to myself, I'm not even going to mention it because we've talked about Chris Nolan twice already, right?
Yep.
And then I thought to myself, I'm not going to watch any Chris Nolan films, and I'm also not going to mention it at all because I, Conrad, I know he's sort of back and forth on Chris Nolan. I'm not going to make it like this Chris Nolan fanboy over here just keeps mentioning him. So I was like, I'm not mentioning him, but you did it, Conrad. You did it.
You'll be pleased to know that this week I'm going to mention, or I have now mentioned, Christopher Nolan, and I will also be mentioning Adam Sandler in 2 films' time. So we've got our type.
I'll tell you what. I am going to now scour the Chris Nolan archives to find some film in which he portrays a president of some sort for next week.
Yeah, I mean, we can speculate about which of his characters become a president. I think it's reasonable to suggest that that Matthew McConaughey's character becomes president at some point in Interstellar.
That's true.
I mean, he's so charismatic. Yeah. He'll go like the Ronald Reagan route. He'll get into politics late.
Come on, Tars.
But anyway,
right, okay.
Tars. My next movie is I don't know if you have seen this, but it was on Amazon Prime, and I'm reading a book at the moment called.
Well done.
I know. For me, I read about 1 book a decade at the moment, but it's called The Best Movie. Oh, I've got it on
podcast
my desk.
Ever.
Yeah, best movie year ever, I believe, and it's basically talking about all the stuff that came out in 1999. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek title. It's not quite as definitive as it makes it sound.
Sounds like a YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. It's not quite. I think it's poking fun at those kind of things, but it's basically talking about like some of the pretty seismic changes that happened in the movie industry in 1999, and that prompted me to watch Steven Soderbergh's The Limey from 1999, obviously.
Never heard of it.
So it's kind of a revenge thriller. Basically, there's Terrence Stamp plays a convict who gets out of prison to find his daughter has died while in a relationship with Peter Fonda.
Yeah,
so he plays this kind of like sort of hippie turned drug baron in LA, and Terrence Stamp is like this Cockney gangster who finds out that his daughter, who went to live in LA, has died while in a relationship with this man, and basically goes to get revenge. And it's quite a simple setup for it. It's basically this guy comes to LA and starts killing Peter Fonda's men and seeks revenge. It's really fun. It's shot in this kind of, for 1999, it's a really interesting way of shooting. It's sort of Steven Soderbergh's shaky camera, like a lot of movement behind the camera, which kind of became quite a typical way to shoot things. But in 1999, it was quite original. And Peter Fonda's performance in it is amazing. He plays like this guy who he's probably in his 50s or 60s, and he feels like he used to be a hippie, but kind of completely sold out and became this still charming, but he kind of sleazy it's not implied it's drugs, it's just like a general crime lord, but his performance is really, really good in it. And yeah, it's a really fun movie, worth watching if you are in the mood for kind of revenge crime thriller. And yeah, that was on Amazon Prime.
That sounds cool. The fact that Peter Fonda is in it makes me kind of want to watch it, because to be honest with you, I'm really intrigued by actors who were really big in sort of the 60s and 70s era of Hollywood. Like I would have loved to see, like, I know he passed away, but I'd love to see like John Wayne in like a 90s Scorsese film or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the idea of these fellas who were really big in that era of cinema still going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, that was kind of like one of the things that book talks about, actually, is this hallmark of indie cinema in the 90s, which is kind of when indie cinema really, really hit the mainstream. Was you would get maybe a couple of aging stars in your movie because they wouldn't cost as much money. And you'd almost kind of, you'd get these aging stars from, you know, years gone by, but you put them in this really like vital new feeling movie, and it would lend it a sense of legitimacy, but also basically reignite their careers. So Tarantino did it with Reservoir Dogs, and to a lesser extent Pulp Fiction as well, with some of the actors in that, obviously. John Travolta being like that was Pulp Fiction. He was a big deal by that point, so it wasn't really an indie film, but he basically restarted John Travolta's career.
Quentin Tarantino loves doing that, doesn't he? He loves restarting the careers.
Yeah, absolutely. But and Peter Fonda, I don't think his career had quite died in the same way that John Travolta's.
No. I know what you mean.
but it was still, this was a departure for him, I think, and he's fantastic in this movie. It's one of the best villain performances I've seen for quite some time.
That's it.
Because he's very believable and very slimy at the same time.
Yeah. It was more that he reminded me of my affinity for that. Like, I love watching Jimmy Stewart in his later roles. It's just so cool.
Jimmy Stewart, it's really interesting with him actually as well, because if I've got him right, is it? Hold on, I'm gonna have to look this up because I don't want to say this, but I'm pretty sure.
I think it's in Bill's house and Ted's house. You haven't seen that film? You haven't seen that film?
No, there's a lot of Jimmy Stewart movies that I haven't seen. I've seen like Vertigo and stuff like that. Was he in? No, I'm thinking of someone else. Okay, ignore me. We're just gonna ignore that entire.
Have you seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance?
Yes.
Okay, so he's in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Jimmy Stewart movies. And yeah, he shows up. Was the last movie that he did Fievel Goes West?
Yes,
I think it was.
Yeah.
In 1990 time, we're like Malaysia.
Yeah,
it's a weird end to Jimmy Stewart.
What a last film that is, like, to be honest with you.
It's a good movie. I like Fievel Goes West.
Funny enough,
I haven't watched it in a long time.
Funny enough, I actually watched The Rescuers the other day.
Did you?
With my son, but we can't talk about that.
No. You're not allowed to talk about family movies or movies watched with family because it robs the viewing experience of its legitimacy.
You have to sit down and just stare at the screen, and if you blink more than 100 times in the whole film, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you've done it wrong. But actually, to be honest, this next movie that I'm going to talk about, and the last one before we go back to you, is one that probably would have been improved by watching it with a small child, because it would have distracted me from the experience. Which is Robert Smigel or Robert Smigel. I'm not sure the pronunciation.
Smigel.
But yeah, it's his directorial debut. It's 2018's The Week Of, starring Adam Sandler and Chris Rock. It was recommended to me as one of the better Happy Madison comedies of recent times, and I was like, okay, we've talked about Sandler a lot. I'm going to give this a go and see how it feels. And to Spigel's credit, it does feel like there was slightly more effort put into the presentation of this than something like Jack and Jill or Grown Ups, which just feel like abject. There's no ambition to those. They're just designed to be farted out and to try and make some money, and are abhorrent pieces of trash as a result. There is some ambition to this, but the script is messy, the characterization is bad, it overstays its welcome. It's like two and a bit hours long, which is way too long for an Adam Sandler comedy. It did get a few laughs out of me. It did, probably 2 or 3. It's not the worst movie in the world, but yeah, it was a hard watch.
Yeah, I've seen this as well. I watched it. I will say that the differences and sort of what Robert Smigel's going for, I think, do make it more watchable than something like Jack and Jill or something. Jack and Jill's quite old now. This is Adam Sandler in his Netflix iteration, where he sometimes pops out gems like Hubie Halloween.
Is that the one where he plays Dracula and it's about his daughter?
No. Hubie Halloween is like a... I haven't given my thoughts on this at all publicly, but Hubie Halloween was I was going to make a video in December called "Is It Too Late to Talk About Hubie Halloween?" But basically, Hubie Halloween is the latest in the Adam Sandler comedies on Netflix, where he plays a sort of how do I put this, Bobby Boucher-esque, like from The Waterboy, man-child, where he takes it upon himself to protect everyone on Halloween while they're all trick-or-treating and stuff. And then obviously things go down. I personally, my wife and I, maybe it's that we have kids and we're just a little bit sillier now, and I do have an affinity for Adam Sandler, as we said before. Hubie Halloween, next Halloween, you love Halloween, Conrad. So next Halloween, watch Hubie Halloween. You'll find it one of the stupidest films you've ever watched in your life. But in my mind, I was like, is it stupider than Hocus Pocus? It's not the same quality as Hocus Pocus, but it's definitely not stupider than it. So I liked it. But basically, anyway, The Week Of, I would say about this, I kind of feel like this, like Adam Sandler, he popped the cork too early on his old Jewish man. So I think like we all knew that's where he's going to end up. He's going to end up playing like the old Jewish dad, right? He popped the cork on that too early. He should have waited another 10 years and did it then. He's a bit too young to be playing the character in the way he is. Having said that, if you're from the Jewish community and you think he's spot on, I will track that, and I will concede to your all-knowing power. But to me, it felt, I could just tell with Adam Sandler, he's putting a character on.
Did you ever
being
see
his dad or whatever?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, actually, because did you ever see this on? I think it's still on Netflix. The Meyerowitz stories.
I didn't watch it.
So I think you would quite like that. It's got Adam Sandler in it as well. Funnily enough, it's also Ben Stiller and Dustin Hoffman. And it's basically Dustin Hoffman is their dad, the patriarch of this Jewish family, and he gets sick.
Is that about? No, I don't think it's. I'm thinking about the one with his agent. Yeah, but I've seen the trailer for this thing.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like Dustin Hoffman plays the kind of character that I feel like Adam Sandler's trying to go for in some of these films.
Okay.
But he's not. The scripts aren't good enough to cover for his limitations as an actor. And we said it before, Sandler can be good in the right roles, but he does need a script that works with him. And I think
every role he's ever hit out the park has been written for him. Yeah,
and I think he's trying to do this kind of cantankerous old sort of Jewish patriarch thing, or not really a patriarch because he's not in the week of, he's not really in control of his family, but he is the tries to be the man of the house, and I don't think the script is there for him to like achieve the same kind of role. But the Meyerowitz story is well worth checking out if you want to see a good version of the week of. Not really the same plot, but it has some of the same kind of same elements to it, I guess you would say.
Very interesting.
Right, Anthony, what do you got next for us?
Well, I've got a film that I've been meaning to watch for a while, but I was a bit, to be honest with you, I was a bit burned out on this type of film. I'm someone who is well connected into news and someone who tries to view things from outside a certain bubble. Obviously, we're not, in this day and age, we can never be fully successful at that because we only read and fed the stuff we are. But I try to be open-minded in every respect. So the film The Circle, which is Emma Watson and Tom Hanks, which is about Emma Watson getting a job at an Apple-like tech company that is run by the charismatic entrepreneur, leader of the company, who's Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks's character is called Bailey, and Emma Watson is called May. But so I put it off, but I like to watch anything with Tom Hanks in it. If I'm honest with you, I eventually want to say that I've seen every Tom Hanks film. But I will say about this that it didn't live up to my expectations. Basically, May gets a job at an Apple-like company. She then gets sucked into it, and she sort of buys into it, their cult-like nature, talking about how they're going to make, these... It's portrayed... Now, I've never actually obviously been in a San Francisco area tech company. Like, I don't live there. Have been in San Francisco. It's a lovely place, but I've never been to to a tech company there and stuff. So I can only take what media tells me. And I know my brother works in a big tech company here in Northern Ireland, and they're kind of trying to do the same thing. But the idea of it is like, it's like we're a family, and and like we work wherever we want, and it's all about like that sort of idea, sort of cult-like, and this really just...
You're indoctrinated into their way of thinking.
Exactly, yeah, and that's they're sort of doing that in this film, and the reason why I was putting it off is because, like, I generally know the effect that social media has on people. Like, I'm not someone who, when you say to me, you know that they feed political ideas to you through your Facebook feed, I'm like, yeah, I know that. I don't need to... Like, there was a documentary, I call it The Social Something, it came out a few months ago, and like my brother and other people will come up to me and going, oh my God, you need to watch this. They target ads at you, which statistically proves that you vote that way. I'm like, this isn't news. Like, this has been happening for years. And I just feel like that way about this sort of thing is that I understand that maybe the general population who aren't as key, like, everyone has their own interests, you know what I mean? Like, and there's no snobbery in terms of your own interests, but one of my interests is to keep up to date with politics, to keep up to date with news, and I understand that social media companies aren't really all good, and I understand that they're sort of pushing an agenda to get your money and to get adverts, and like, it's almost at the point where you can click a button and it's provable that it makes people think a certain way. So
yeah.
I wasn't that impressed with it, to be honest with you. I thought that, I don't know. What do you think about it? Have you seen it?
No, I've not seen this, but I mean, it sounds a bit disappointing. Does it? So I think with stuff like this, where it's kind of presenting like a near future or a contemporary dystopia based on the impact that
it's
social
present
media
day.
has
It's present day.
yeah. But this idea, I mean, kind of like near future in terms of it's maybe not technology that quite exists right now, but probably will exist in the next 5 years, or maybe it does for this film. But
For the most part, it does exist. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, these kinds of movies about this the impact that technology is having on our day-to-day lives. I find a lot of them, and it sounds like maybe this one is the same. It comes up with the concept. So in this case, we're being fed these ideas through social media, which change the way we think.
It's also
But it doesn't actually have anything else to say.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yes, exactly. It's all about being transparent in the film. So like Emma Watson's character May, she gets to the point where she's actually not really that connected on social media and stuff. She lives out in the country, and then when she gets in there, they all think she's a weirdo because she's not. And then she eventually fully buys into the company, and then she's the first ever employee of the company to go transparent, meaning that there's a camera on her all the time, and it's almost like she's actively participating in the Truman Show. That's what it's like. So everyone is talking to her all the time in the chat. She has to, when she wakes up in the morning, at a particular time she has to put it on. If she has to go to the toilet during the day, she only has 3 minutes to do it. Then the camera comes back on again, and that's not the whole film's premise, but that is a big chunk of the film. Like a lot of the film is taken up in the middle of her dealing with the fact that this is the case. I will say, sorry.
I was just going to say, so with the camera on her at all times, is that conveyed in like the presentation? Like, is there a stretch in the middle where it's shot primarily from the body cam, or is it just kind of like a one and done? This is what she has.
No, they keep going back to it. It's not shot primarily from it, but they do keep going back to it.
Okay.
And they do a lot of shot of the body from the body cam with like this, like the markings of the camera on the screen as if to make it look like found footage.
Yeah.
And then like have like they also do the thing which I don't hate all the time, but it's very overdone in that whenever people are like looking at social media, all the comments start popping up around their head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we get it. That was done what? Like it's in the social media, like the social network?
that like trope is the modern day's version of, oh shit, this character's reading a letter. How do we communicate this information to the audience? And in like the 60s, or no, it wouldn't be the 60s, it'd be like the 40s and 30s.
Voiceover.
Like, yeah, you do voiceover to get that information across. And now it's like, shit, we need to convey social media stuff is happening. So we do like the bloop, 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 and all these people being like, hashtag this person's a dick or whatever in the corner. That's disappointing though. That sounds like an interesting idea, perhaps not particularly well realized.
Yeah, and I will say, like, Emma Watson, I think she is good. I don't mind Emma Watson as an actor. I think that definitely throughout the Harry Potter film, she eventually grew into a decent actor. But I will say about her, when people of our generations, obviously you sort of avoided Harry Potter because you didn't get the role of Harry Potter, so I'm
very bitter about it.
Yeah, but basically, when people of my generation who grew up with Harry Potter, grew up with Emma Watson, basically. I'm going to need to see a fair few more films with her doing an American accent before I buy into it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's weird because I know her voice too well because I grew up with it, right?
But she was good in Little Women. Did you say you've seen that?
Little Women was great. Little Women was so well made. Greta Gerwig is amazing. I really like Greta Gerwig. And Greta Gerwig's great, Saoirse Ronan's one of my favorite young actresses at the minute. I will say that I didn't question her once because of the quality of that film. The Circle, however, I was questioning it. So actually, you're right. Maybe it's actually not a reflection of Emma Watson. It's a reflection of the film. I will say, though, before we move off The Circle, because we've said a fair bit about it already, I don't know if I have too much more to say about it without getting into spoiler territory, and we'll try and avoid doing that. Bill Paxton. This is his last. This is his last film.
That makes me about 90% more likely to watch this movie than knowing Bill Paxton's in it.
This is his last ever film before he passed away. So Bill Paxton, and it was the first film that him and Tom Hanks did together since Apollo 13. So basically, Bill Paxton, I'm a bit sad that this was his last role, to be honest with you, because he actually plays Emma Watson's father. And he is sort of a man with chronic illness.
Okay.
And it's very sort of like the father could pass away at any moment because of his chronic illness. And to be honest with you, knowing that Bill Paxton died and this was his last film, I didn't really like Fate. Why Fate did you make this his last film?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like it was all like you watched the whole time looking at this. I don't actually know how he died. So maybe he wasn't ill. Maybe it was a sudden accident. I don't know how he died. So, but
I don't think it was. I think he was. I think he was ill. I can't remember exactly. But,
to be honest with you, knowing an actor's is his last role, knowing he's passed away, I didn't. He did a great job, and he was very sympathetic in the role. But I didn't like watching it. If I'm honest with you.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's a shame when an actor's final role is in an underwhelming movie, which it sounds like maybe this is a little bit.
But yeah, and also John Boyega's in it too, which is
I just saw that. That's interesting.
Yeah, John Boyega plays sort of one of the revolutionaries of the company, sort of thing. I'll not say any more about it than that.
Okay.
But also the actress who plays May's mum, I believe it's Glenn Headley. She actually passed away as well the same year. So both of the parents of Emma Watson's character are both passed away in real life now.
Okay, that's very, very, very grim.
Yeah.
But for it to happen that same year as well. But well, okay, so that's the
again on Netflix in the UK.
Cool. Okay. Well, my next one we mentioned briefly last week. So again, I'm not going to spend too long on this, but this is 2012's Dread, which came to Netflix in the UK on the 1st of January. Hopefully it's available in other places because this was a complete financial failure. Didn't make its budget back, let alone, additional costs for marketing and all that jazz. And I don't know why. It's a brilliant, brilliant movie. It's directed by an English guy called Pete Travis, who... to make a callback to a different podcast, which is only going to reward the listeners who have listened to both. He started off by directing 2 episodes of The Bill in 1997, which for those of you who don't know, was a really, really bollocks police procedural in the UK. But I absolutely loved finding that out. This is only his second feature after 2009's Endgame, which I never actually saw. I think it was a young adult kind of thing. But afterwards he went back to TV, I think, for the most part, because it's such failure. But it's Carl Urban as Judge Dredd, who goes into takes a young psychic judge played by Olivia Thirlby, who the only thing I've seen her in is Juno. She has been in other stuff.
Juno's a great film.
Juno is a great movie, yeah. But yeah, Olivia Thirlby plays Anderson, who's this young psychic judge who is sort of borderline or kind of failing the judge examination. And they say, go with Judge Dredd, spend a day with him, see if you pass muster and get in. And unfortunately they go to what seems like a standard standard triple homicide, which tells you something about the sort of crime rate in the city in Mega City 1, and it turns out to be linked to this massive drug racket for this new drug on the market called slow-mo, which is basically this, you take this inhaler and it slows everything down around you. And that plays into one of the essential kind of presentational themes of the movie, which is that it was made for, perhaps unwisely, made for 3D. But it's one of the few examples of 3D that I actually think looks pretty good. And the slow motions, they basically they get this really high resolution kind of glistening slow-mo shots that actually look really impressive, particularly when there's action going on in the background. And that's kind of related directly to the taking of this drug. But yeah, things go badly for them, and they have to fight their way to the top to get out. And it is a great action movie, well worth checking out.
Right, I'm going to be pedantic.
Go on.
This slow-mo drug.
Yep.
So is it called slow-mo, but it actually does the opposite? It speeds you up, or does it actually slow everything down around you?
Oh no! It basically, it's like being in the zone when you're an athlete. It slows so your reactions, I guess, are sped up because you're perceiving everything at.
So it makes you feel like you're moving slow motion, or everyone else is moving slow motion, but actually, it's doing the opposite. So it's actually like a fast thing. It's fast. Yeah, it should be called fast forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Fast forward.
Yeah, no. I mean, it should really be that, but I don't think that would have been. It wouldn't be as fun to watch a action sequence in essentially fast forward than watching it in super slow mo.
That's true.
But,
yeah.
The cinematographer on this film is this veteran cinematographer called, I think his name's got it here. Anthony Dodd Mantle, who did stuff like Last King of Scotland, 127 Hours, Slumdog Millionaire, did Rush after this. So he's worked with a lot of directors, and he really gets to flex his muscles in those slow-mo scenes and in others as well. It's very grim where they're shooting, but they get some really beautiful photography out of it. And there's these couple of kind of like proto John Wick moments where they're like these tactical over the shoulder follow shots as they're clearing out corridors and stuff that are very, very fun to watch.
Yeah, and I've just seen here as well that it's sort of it's a marriage of two stars of really big fantasy series, because Carl Urban's in it, but also Lena Headey's in it as well.
Yeah, Lena Headey plays the bad guy, plays Mama.
I wonder if there's many films that have crossovers between Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings like this.
We should do a themed episode on that.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is. Orlando Bloom must have.
Well, I'm sure there is as well, with like things like Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee and stuff. Yeah.
But like actors like Ian McShane completely balls it up because he was in one episode of Game of Thrones and he's in everything.
Yeah.
So that's our Kevin Bacon, Ian McShane. He's been in everything. We can come back to him.
But Carl Urban, I really like Carl Urban, and to be honest with you, he's sort of, to me, for my own, perspective, fell off the face of the earth for a while. And he's come back.
Well, because he was making stuff like this, where he was in Hollywood, he was making financial failures. I think he actually might have gone back to. Is he Australian or from New Zealand? I can't remember.
I think he's Australian. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think he went back to Australia for a bit to make some movies there.
Oh no, he's from New Zealand. Sorry. There's a few of the there is a few of the Lord of the Rings cast that are Australian. When you think a lot of them are from New Zealand. And he's one of the ones I always thought was Australian, but he's not. He's New Zealand.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, he is great. I mean,
Oh, sorry, he's a Cockney. Have we seen The Boys?
Oh my god, his Cockney accent. It's just be Australian or be.
His Cockney accent in The Boys really adds to my theory that The Boys is just Pirates of the Caribbean, because it's akin to Jack Sparrow's accent in that,
Yeah, it's like. Just make the character from New Zealand. Like, it's so inconsistent, that accent. But actually, talking about The Boys, it's great to see Urban in that, because he deserves better than what he got for like the peak of his career, which is kind of movies like this.
He's now through The Boys now for the rest of his career. He's broken into the upper echelon now.
Yeah, he's set up, and hopefully we'll get some roles out of it. But I mean, and it's funny actually with stuff like this, because it's not very taxing. Olivia Thirlby is really the heart of this movie, and she gets the arc as the like rookie judge who learns to use her psychic powers to be a competent police officer, or judge in this case, and basically proves herself to Judge Dredd, which gives that her being there is really smart in the screenplay, because it gives Carl Urban license to go off and shoot stuff and be cool as Judge Dredd. So there's not a lot of like scripts for him to sink his teeth into. So it's really good that he got something like The Boys after this, where he gets a chance to show that he is a very, very good actor in that, which maybe he doesn't get in this. But still, Dredd is a great movie. If you're looking for sci-fi, dystopian, gritty action, this is the one to go for.
Awesome, yeah. Like to be honest with you, I was very close to clicking the play button on this one. Yeah. And then I was called to change a nappy or something, so I didn't quite get a chance to do it. But I am going to watch this at some point. This is one that, to be honest with you, and I'm sure you're pretty similar to me in this regard, Conrad. In that era of cinema, whenever something was advertised as 3D, I didn't go anywhere near it.
Oh yeah,
I think
this was one of the few I watched.
The only film I ever saw in 3D was Avatar, and Avatar's 3D was apparently meant to be the best 3D ever. And I was like, I just don't like this. So if Avatar wasn't good in my eyes, I'm not going to go see anything else.
Yeah, I saw Avatar, I saw Dredd, I saw a few others.
I just will say, we'll get into Avatar, I'm sure, another day, especially when we talk about the 4 sequels coming out. But I actually really enjoyed Avatar. It's a ripping yarn, in my opinion, and I will talk about a lot more in the future, I'm sure. But the 3D aspect of it, I'm not sold on 3D at all.
Yeah, I didn't feel it added that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
Talking about a movie which probably doesn't need to be in 3D, I think you would actually really enjoy this movie. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's getting a lot of buzz at the moment for the performances of its 2 leads. A lot of Oscar buzz, unsurprisingly, and that is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom on Netflix. I think a lot of the discourse around this movie is focusing on the fact that it was Chadwick Boseman's last performance before he died. And he does turn in, I think it's fair to say a career best performance here. Both he and Viola Davis are fantastic as these blues musicians who basically stop their tour in the southern states of America. I think they're in Georgia, to go up north to Chicago to record a record for a white run recording company, and it's basically a chamber piece. It's the tensions that flare up during this one day of recording in this Chicago recording studio. Okay. And it's based on a play. I can't remember the name of the playwright, but because it's based on a play and because it's a very simple premise, it does feel slightly overwritten in spots. Like you can kind of feel the bits where the characters kind of step forward to the front of the stage to monologue, and it does sort of break the immersion a bit. But Boseman and Viola Davis's performances are phenomenal in it, and it's a good movie. It tells a really nice story. I wouldn't say it's a great movie, but their performances elevate it beyond what the director is doing with it. And the director is a guy called George C. Wolfe.
That's, to be honest with you, Conrad, I don't know how. This completely passed me by. I've never heard of this before. I am going to watch it now. I love the idea of Chadwick Boseman. I've enjoyed Chadwick Boseman, most things he's done in the past. I'm sorry that I didn't watch more of his stuff while he was still alive. Having said that, it's all there for me to watch now. Viola Davis is a character actor who I have been very impressed by many times. So I'm thinking mostly towards like Doubt, where she won an Oscar for what, like 9 minutes of screen time. Unbelievable. Yeah. She's fantastic. I've even partaken every now and then in a bit of lazy TV with her How to Get Away with Murder. But basically, this sounds great. And I watched Soul last week, which was sort of a modern take on this sort of world as well. It obviously the Pixar way as well. So I'm interested to watch more about that. So it sounds really great. And the idea of it being a play, that actually sells it to me a little bit as well, to be honest with you. Like I think stuff that's made from a play and they kind of don't fully make it they sort of keep a little bit of that style. Like I'm thinking of, for example, like Death of a Salesman. That was similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it makes some, I think it sort of makes you realize it was a play, but also it gives it a specific style. So
absolutely. Like it's not, I don't think that style is bad. It's just kind of, if you want something that's maybe a bit more dynamic to look at, you're not really going to get it from this, because it's a lot of it's in the character work. But I think particularly as a musician yourself, I think you would enjoy it because it's Viola Davis plays this kind of like sultry blues singer who I believe was a real person. I'm not that well versed on kind of Delta blues music, but I believe Ma Rainey was a real person, and Levy, can't remember his surname, but Levy is Chadwick Boseman's character's name, is the trumpeter for her band. I will say this now. I will be very surprised if Chadwick Boseman doesn't win the Best Leading Actor Oscar for this performance. Just it's a great performance.
Is he a leading actor in it, or would they maybe give him supporting?
He might get supporting.
They fudge it a little bit sometimes. They might give him supporting just to make sure he gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of an ensemble performance. I mean, he is more of a lead than anyone else in the movie, but it is kind of ensemble, so he might get supporting. But I would be just because the stars are aligning for this. It's a good movie. His performance is phenomenal in it, and obviously it's posthumous as well. So I'd be really surprised if he didn't win an Oscar for this movie.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I know like with people who, if you rip your heart out of your chest, you might think posthumous, I would say assisted Oscars maybe are not the greatest thing. Having said that, put your heart back in. I think if the performance is what you're saying, I think you would want to pull the plug on that, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, why wouldn't you want to honor a great actor, and particularly for an actor who, and I say this as someone who's not the biggest fan of Black Panther. I thought that movie was good. I didn't think it was great. That movie was pretty disrespected awards season, given the general consensus for that movie, which is that everyone loved it, and they were kind of like, we're not going to nominate this for Best Picture, and we're not going to nominate, like, because we don't take superhero movies seriously, and this would be a great chance, hopefully, for the Academy to recognize a very good actor who left us far too soon.
Yeah, and if you're someone who does think no, you need to be really stringent with who gets an award. Just because someone died doesn't mean they should come to the front of the queue. Maybe not, but at the same time, it's just a gold statue. Like, and it doesn't mean anything. And for the people who it does mean something to, well, it would be great to honor this man's life, honor his career.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, that's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Came to Netflix quite recently, so check that out. It is a good movie, elevated by two phenomenal central performances.
Excellent.
And my last one before we go back to you, Anthony. This is taking a few steps backwards in time. I watched Alfred Hitchcock's The 39 Steps from 1935, which is it's a really cool spy movie. Basically, it feels like a kind of proto, almost like North by Northwest. I think I don't know if you've seen that with Cary Grant.
No.
As like a guy gets wrapped up in a spy mystery. Basically, it's about a guy who takes in this woman when there is a shooting at a comedy show that he's at, and it turns out that she's embroiled in some spy mystery, and she turns up dead in his apartment, and he needs to run for his life because the police are after him, and he finds out there's some lord in Scotland who's selling secrets, and he needs to rumble the case of the spy in Scotland while also avoiding the police. It's very satisfying. So does Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll. It has that kind of 1930s dialogue. It's just really charming, really snappy. There's like great chemistry between them. And actually, to be honest, for a movie from the 30s, I watched quite a lot of older movies. It doesn't have too many super problematic elements, which Hitchcock doesn't tend to. His stuff has aged quite well, but it's very easy to watch without having to put on your I'm watching a movie from almost 100 years ago glasses. So well worth checking out if you're in the mood for a ripping spy yarn.
Very interesting, yeah. Robert Donat, he's in The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes, and Goodbye Mr. Chips as well, which is a very sad movie.
I actually, it's funny, looking at these films, which, as you say rightly, nearly 100 years old. It's funny, I want to watch more of them, and I've seen a good amount from most eras of cinema. I think it's crazy. Every now and then, someone will go, "Hey, have you seen this one?" And it's just how many films were there? It's like I can't commit to watching every film ever, but I'm also I really should watch every film ever. You know?
I mean, we'll get back to that later because there's one that I basically have a list of things that I should have seen.
Yeah.
And every couple of weeks I'll be like, right, I just want to get one off this list, but it's impossible to do. You have to try and keep up with the new stuff.
Yeah.
And just watch things that appeal to you. Honestly, it's hard to go wrong with Hitchcock. I say that even as somebody who's not Hitchcock's biggest fan, but his stuff has stood the test of time, so it's always worth checking out. But there are only so many hours in the day, so there's only so much you can do. And if you're watching movies on Netflix or most streaming services, the reality is you're not going to get much exposure to this. I think this is what pretty much the only reason I stay subscribed to Amazon Prime is because they have a lot of older movies, which I tend to quite like. But
they have a lot of the older lesser known westerns too, which I like to watch.
Yeah, they do. I think they might have the Dollars trilogy on Amazon Prime at the moment, which is well worth checking out if you want a spaghetti western. They've got John Ford stuff as well, which I always really like Stagecoach and things like that. But yeah, so I won't say too much more about that. Just it's got great. It's Hitchcock in the 30s, so it's this wonderful kind of noir photography, expressionistic shadows. Obviously, the blocking is very traditional. People stand up and stand up against fireplace and I say, man, and then kind of talk off into the distance rather than the person next to them. And there's a scene where Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll are handcuffed together, and she has to take her stockings off, and so his hand is rubbing against her leg as she's taking the stocking off.
Oh, scandalous!
Mother, may I? kind of moment. But it's really good fun. Well worth checking out. But yeah, let's go back to you then, Anthony, for your last one.
My final film. Okay, funnily enough, it's actually set very similar time frame to what you've been just talking about. But it's also made almost 90 years after. It is, of course, everyone's favorite series of all time, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Okay, is Eddie Redmayne in that one, or is he in the first one?
He's in both. So it's I think they've announced there's going to be 5 of these. Of course, Johnny Depp's just been dropped because.
Who's replacing him? I didn't see.
Has it been announced yet? I'm not sure.
Oh,
while
okay,
I do my little,
maybe
look that up while I'm doing my little spiel about the film. So basically, we all know this has been basically set in the Harry Potter universe. You know, my childhood is a slave to Harry Potter. I will just say, and devoiding myself of this, even watching this once would be closing off the happiest part of my childhood. Having said that, it wasn't good. Let's be honest. This series is quickly devolving and really exposing J.K. Rowling as just not good.
Did she write this then? I thought this was completely separate from her writing.
No. She writes them, and then they also they release the script in novel form.
Right. Okay.
So it is all, as it is with J.K. Rowling. It's all about making money. Like that's like she hit upon an interesting idea that was basically trope upon trope from a load of other fantasies in Harry Potter. I've always said, even though I loved it as a kid, and even though I could watch the films now and read the books now and still enjoy it because it is nostalgic for me, I will always say it's soft fantasy. The world that she has built does not hold up to scrutiny whatsoever. And that is never more evident than in The Crimes of Grindelwald. Because every time they have an opportunity to add in an extra element, to add in something new to this world, they either don't do it and just reference something that's already from the books or the films, other films, or it's so lazily done that it just exposes her for not knowing what she's doing. So let me give you a few examples. In this film, they, in the same 10 or 15 minutes, have references to the Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas Flamel is in the film. They have Dumbledore as a young man, who's played by Jude Law. They have the Lestrange family tree.
Okay, yeah.
And many more things. They have they just keep saying, hey, remember this? You liked Harry Potter. So if I show you stuff from Harry Potter, you're going to like this. So that's what it felt like. And to be honest with you, for example, it's sort of, they go across, basically it's set up in that Newt Scamander, who played by Eddie Redmayne from the first film, he collects animals, and like they sort of have gone away a little bit from the fact that it's about him looking for different animals, and the whole point of the first one was that he was meant to be, like, Newt Scamander wrote a book, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and that's like one of the books they use in school, in the school of Hogwarts, and he's like a big sort of author, and the whole point of these films was meant to be he's writing these books. Well, in the second film, it's hilarious. Like in other films, they would just have like a cop come in, or like a wizard come in, I suppose, and like say, "Hey, get away from that," you know.
Yeah.
In this film, they've got a wizard walk in, but they're surrounded by 3 or 4, fantasy dogs, because you got to have creatures in it. Because it's all about him discovering animals. And it's just like, hey, you need another animal? There's another one. It's like, there wasn't this many animals in the Harry Potter films. Where have they all fucking come from? So anyway, an example of where it just shows me, to be honest with you, that J.K. Rowling is not a good world builder. She had the opportunity to actually create a more compelling world, because they were going, in the first one they went to New York. And in the second one, now they've gone to they've gone to Paris. And in New York, like, so the Ministry of Magic is in London, right? And that's like the UK, the British Ministry of Magic. Now, when they went to New York, they didn't call it like the Department of Magic. They
the Federal Department of Magicians and Witches.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They call it Ministry of Magic USA. So it comes up at the bottom saying like America or USA or New York or whatever, Ministry of Magic. When they were going to Paris, they didn't call it Le Département Magique or Le Ministrie Magique or whatever, right? Yeah. They called it Ministry of Magic, Paris, right?
Oh, okay.
And I'm just like, you don't know what you're doing, J.K. Rowling. Like, what are you doing? Like, I could go on about this all day long.
I mean, this is a writer who called an East Asian character Cho Chan, so it's like kind of like she is a writer who will only ever do the most cursory of research into how to represent another culture before she's just like, yeah, that'll do. No, like that passes the squint test.
Yeah, and I'd like to be completely honest with you, she kind of falls into the Star Wars problem of
that sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah,
and like referencing.
It's a Star Wars problem of needing every character to be related in some way to famous characters from the past.
Yeah, and like constantly like leveraging nostalgia to replace actual good filmmaking or good storytelling, I guess.
Exactly. That's the way it was, to be quite honest with you. I wasn't impressed with this film. Ema and I were watching it, and like literally there was a point where I clicked to see how much film was gone. An hour and 20 minutes had gone, and I said to her, I could probably cut this film together and it would be 10 minutes long and it would cover all the main points so far. like literally, she doesn't know what she's writing screenplays. It's so boring. It's nothing happens.
I don't know how well these movies are doing, to be honest, because they always seem to be poorly received critically, yet they're making more of them. I mean, to go back to what we were talking about when you first started talking about this, Mads Mikkelsen is replacing Johnny Depp as Grindelwald, which is a pretty cool replacement.
I like Mads Mikkelsen
a lot.
Yeah.
But so they're definitely making the third one, despite the first and second being very poorly received from everything I've seen about them.
Yeah, well, poorly received, and I can see why. I was in school today, and I told one of my pupils who I know is like sort of a bit of a nerdy Harry Potter fan, like I would be, and I said to him, I watched Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald yesterday, and he said, "That's a crap movie." Like, literally,
like if you lost them, if you're not getting those guys on board, then you're struggling.
It's it's not good. I think Jude Law is a good casting for a young Dumbledore, like a good young Michael Gambon. I think that's probably pretty good. Mark Kermode is a film critic that I really admire, and he said that he hated this film, and in the last 10 minutes made him kind of want to see the next one.
Oh, okay. Is that? Would you agree with that?
No. To be honest with you, the last 10 minutes compounded all the problems I had with it. You know, the last reveal at the very end I was like, that's the big reveal. More of the same shit. Okay, I'm out.
So, do you think you're going to watch the third one?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. They got you. They got you right where they want you.
I would have watched the third one no matter what, because to be honest with you, this is going to sound really silly, okay? Because I've just basically shit on this film for 10 minutes. But the reason why I'm going to watch the next one is the same reason I keep watching the Pirates of the Caribbean films. If I like the aesthetic of your world, I'll spend an hour in it. Like I'll spend an hour and a half in it. An hour and a half of my time every 2 years, I'll give it to you if I like what I'm looking at.
I mean, the production design of these seems good, at least. Yeah,
exactly. So that's how I feel about it. I know you haven't seen it. You've only recently watched the Harry Potter films, so
yeah, I literally only just finished watching them for the first time. So if my current rate of progress through the Harry Potter universe is to be extrapolated for this, I'll probably get around to these movies when I'm in my 50s.
Yeah. Just to put it in perspective as well, Fantastic Beasts on IMDb has 6.6 out of 10. The Circle, which I also didn't really like, has 5.3. The Circle is a million times better than Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's probably that our previously stated issues with the IMDb rating system and user ratings in general.
Yeah, I probably should be looking at the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, but still.
Yeah, I tend to use Rotten Tomatoes, but I mean, still, you know, it's interesting to get a sense of how people feel about it, and I guess maybe the like you've said, the production design and the way they realize that world is enough for some people, even if it sounds like narratively there isn't really that much going on.
Listen, when the next one comes out, like I know he's probably still not old enough to watch it, but my first son is probably going to be 4 or 5, getting into the age where we might want to start reading him the Harry Potter books. You know, whether or not we will do that at this stage based on recent things coming out. I'm not sure we will. I probably still will, to be honest with you. My wife hasn't bought anything from Nestle for 3 years. Come on, we do boycott some things, but basically, I think I'll probably get around to watching the rest of this series whenever my kids are into Harry Potter. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they enjoy it, then I guess there's something positive to be gained from the creation of
and then like when he turns 10 or 11 and I tell him Santa's not real, I'll then say, oh yeah, by the way, Crimes of Grindelwald is crap.
Yeah, those movies you love are terrible. Yeah. Get some taste.
Yeah, Junior. That's the second revelation today, son. No Santa Claus, and that's a crap film.
Yeah, you need to work on your taste. We're going to sit down and watch Citizen Kane.
Yeah. All right, well, there you go. What are your last ones? How many you got left?
Okay, so I've got 3 left. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because we're at an hour 10 now. So the first one, did you ever see a movie it was on Netflix again called Force Majeure? It's a Swedish movie.
No, I have heard of it actually. I've heard of like he's ringing a bell. I have no idea where I've heard of it.
So it was a 2014 pitch black comedy, basically about a family of skiers or snowboarders. I can't remember in the Swedish version which one they are, but they go to a ski resort. They're having breakfast one day. There's an avalanche come barreling towards them, and in the split second,
this is remade with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Will Ferrell.
Yeah. So the original Force Majeure, just to finish what I was saying there, basically the dad runs away at the last minute. It's fine. Let me finish my story. The dad runs away at the last minute, and it becomes this really interesting analysis of masculinity, what it means to be a father, a husband, the kind of interesting dynamics of a marriage that maybe has some problems in it, and it's all very, very straight-laced, but it's very funny and very subtle in that kind of way that a lot of Scandinavian films can be. I watched 2020's Downhill, which is a remake of that, starring Will Ferrell. And
you didn't watch Force Majeure?
No, I've seen it already. I watched that back in 2014.
Oh, I was gonna go in the whole way into the fella from what do you call him, Christopher Hivju. I was gonna go into him.
Oh yeah. Oh well, Christopher. We'll get to him in a second.
Okay.
Well, so this is I watched 2020's Downhill. It's a remake starring Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Basically the same premise, but if you imagine all of that really clever, really funny, like darkly funny writing, get rid of all of that shit and just replace it with schmaltzy sentimentality, on the nose bullshit. None of the cool character work. The best characters in this are Miranda Otto, who links back to Lord of the Rings. She played Eowyn, and she's also one of the aunts in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She plays like this kind of stereotypically like sexually open European.
I see where this is going.
She's very funny in that. And Christopher Hivju has the best scene in the entire movie where he gets a cameo as a security guard, not security guard. I don't know what they'd be called really, like a safety person and they report
Sherpa.
The avalanche to them. Sherpa, sure, I don't know. He gets the best scene in the movie exactly because he gets to do the very dry humor that made the original so good. But this is one of those remakes. It's just like, why the fuck did you make this? Like, it just completely misses the point of the original. Nat Faxon and Jim Rash directed it. I don't think they even watched the original based on what they did here. It's just a pointless remake. Go and watch Force Majeure instead. It's a far better film.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm really sad to hear that because I would have put up with the aging Will Ferrell to see a Julia Louis-Dreyfus film, but
she does good work. I will say Julia Louis-Dreyfus is fucking clinging on by her, like she's white knuckling this to try and make it a good film, but she can't do it alone. Like Will Ferrell is just like, what is your character here, Will Ferrell? And it's just it's like she gets the best lines of those two, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we've talked about Miranda Otto and Carl Urban, and Miranda Otto and Christopher Hivju is our second Game of Thrones Lord of the Rings pairing.
Oh, this thing writes itself.
No, that's what I was saying. I see where this is going.
Get them in the themed episode. I actually don't know where Miranda Otto is from. I didn't look her up, but is she from New Zealand or Australia as well?
Might
be English.
Brisbane, Australia. That's probably why I thought Carl Urban was Australian, because his sister in it is Australian. That's probably why.
Yeah, like
my 12-year-old brain being like, Australians in the films, you know.
Listen, I mean, it's good to get some representation that's not Crocodile Dundee.
Don't you curse Paul Hogan's name? That man built the Sydney Harbour Bridge by himself. He put the country on his back.
Yeah, Paul Hogan pulled this country out of recession in the 80s with those movies. No, I like Crocodile Dundee. Those are good movies.
But he actually did work as a builder, like on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And
really?
Yeah, he actually did. And and that's like so people will see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Like people will go to Sydney Harbour Bridge, and the thing people will say about it, Crocodile Dundee built that bridge.
On his own.
Yeah, he was just a worker.
Yeah, just a labourer. But yeah, so 2020's Downhill. Don't watch it. Go and watch Force Majeure instead. It's a way better film.
Cool.
So 2 more. this one, this is me getting one off of my bucket list, and I deserve some kudos for doing this. I watched 9 movies this week, and this one's almost 4 hours long. That is 1962's. I've never seen it before. 1962's Lawrence of Arabia, directed by David Lean. I've never watched it. Sat down.
I've never strapped in for this. Like, I'm gonna be honest.
I literally I watched Downhill. We had a sick cat, and I woke up early on Saturday morning, I think it was, and I watched Downhill, and I was like, that was a piece of shit. And my partner still wasn't awake, so I was looking through Sky to see what was on. I was like, I could watch Lawrence of Arabia right now and just commit to watching like 6 hours of films on a Saturday, and I end up doing it. It's David Lean, so I mean, his work with Freddie Young, who's the cinematographer on this, and Dr. Zhivago is breathtaking. Visually, it's stunning. I think I prefer Dr. Zhivago because I think the themes are have aged better, and Dr. Zhivago doesn't really have some of the problematic Orientalism that this has, which is not to say my opinion of movies that have aged poorly in this respect. So for those who don't know, Alec Guinness and a few other characters wear blackface or brownface to play Middle Eastern characters, and obviously the whole thing is kind of like Orientalism. The movie is the mysterious Middle Eastern Bedouin. My opinion of that kind of depiction is that every piece of art, I don't know how you feel about this, Anthony, hopefully get your opinion on it in a second, but every piece of art needs to have its problems weighed against its contribution. So it's not like, oh, this has a problematic depiction of something, we're just never going to watch this movie again. You have to weigh them against each other, and there will come a point where the problems in something outweigh the value it has to society, and you'll start maybe fading it into the background, which is why, we don't talk about D.W. Griffith anymore, because although he was a revolutionary filmmaker, he also made Birth of a Nation, and fuck Birth of a Nation, quite frankly. I think you and I probably have like quite similar opinions on this.
Yeah, exactly. And I to be honest with you, like, this is the thing, is that the form of thought that both Konrad and I have on it, I think that if people were to sort of just take us at our face opinions on nearly everything in the world, they would assume we are the people who would want to ban stuff like this. If they were to take sort of my own personal leanings, in terms of the world. Having said that, I think that it's overblown that people who do want censorship in this way, I think the people who would want this to be banned and taken away and never seen again is a very minority of people on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I think social media kind of skews the perception of that a little bit, I think.
Education is important. And what I mean by education in this regard is we need to be able to realize why this is wrong. The thing is, if all blackface, brownface was just taken off the earth, then how do we know that's not going to come back in 50 years? Because of someone's new idea. Obviously there's real historical problems with it, which is interesting because Disney Plus has started putting warnings at the start of some of the cartoons. And I think something like that would be fitting for this sort of historical piece of film. There's certain things, like there's a line. There's a line. I think that, and to be honest with you, we need to cross the line to know where it is.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think with something like this, I'm not advocating for cancelling Lawrence of Arabia. As I say, it's still a beautiful movie to look at. The performances of Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole and Anthony Quinn and Claude Rains and Jack Hawkins. It's got this amazing cast of actors, and they're all very good. And it's breathtaking to look at. The Maurice Jarre score is brilliant. So there's loads about this film. Yeah, it's phenomenal, and I did love watching it. I think it's just important to be able to couch an enjoyment of a movie and say it's still a great movie. There are some bits of it that haven't aged that well, and to be honest, I think those kind of warnings are really important. So I mean, one of my favorite movies is Aliens, and I didn't realize until probably 2 years ago or 1 year ago that Jeanette Goldstein, the actress who plays Vasquez, wore brownface for that to play a Hispanic character. I had no idea, and I'm someone that's one of my favorite movies. I've probably
literal
seen it.
Brownface.
Yeah, like they sort of
actually did tan them up. Jeez.
Yeah. So that's a movie from 1984, I think, and she was the mum in Terminator 2, so you can see what she looks like normally. She's kind of freckly, red-haired white woman, and that's a movie I love, and I'm someone who is very into cinema, and I wasn't aware of it. So I think having these kind of discussions is important. I know they can get maybe a bit tiresome when you feel like everything on social media is about these, but they are important to have. Still, Lawrence of Arabia is a great movie. I can't speak highly enough about it, but just be aware that it does have some of that in it. And if you want to see a David Lean movie that doesn't have as much of that, or really any of that, I think Dr. Zhivago is probably slightly better. And also, Dr. Zhivago has a woman in it, which is nice because Lawrence of Arabia doesn't. There are no women in this film. But yeah,
really?
So that's that. Yeah, not a single one. There's a quote from Omar Sharif where he's basically talking about you take this idea to the money men that you want to make a 4-hour movie with no stars in the middle of the desert and no love story and try and sell that to people, and they managed to do it. It is spectacular. So for my last movie, we're gonna go to the opposite side of the woke spectrum with 2015's Carol. Did you ever see this movie?
Nope.
So it's directed by Todd Haynes. It's basically about this gay romance between two women in 1950s New York. One of them is played by Rooney Mara, who's like a shop assistant, kind of not very well off. The other played brilliantly by Cate Blanchett,
Australian.
who is yeah, exactly. There you go. Oh, we're absolutely nailing this. I mean, Rooney Mara wasn't in Game of Thrones, but there might be we've got Cate Blanchett in this, so let's find a Game of Thrones actor in Carol.
I'll get on it.
I mean, Carl Chandler is in this, who plays the brilliantly named Harj Ard, which is not a real name as far as I'm concerned. But basically, yeah, Cate Blanchett plays this very well-to-do, middle-upper-class woman who is she isn't really concealing her sexuality from her husband. She's sort of semi-separated from him, but she's bound to him by the social norms of the time. So he'll threaten her with legal action that will take her children away if she won't stay with him. And it's basically this love story between Rooney Mara's character and Cate Blanchett's character. And it's beautifully shot. Talking about good production design, the production design in this is fantastic. The performances are amazing, and it's got this really kind of lovely. It's like this hopeful but still somewhat melancholy score by this guy called Carter Burwell that is really, really beautiful. So yeah, this is a lovely romance, lovely love story.
That's great. I'm reading the sort of tagline for it, or the tagline. I'm reading the log line for it. An aspiring photographer develops an intimate relationship with an older woman in 1950s New York. I love it when films log lines is just about a relationship between two characters. It's like, we're gonna get a bit of a character study here.
yeah. Like, hold on to your blouse. This one's gonna get spicy, and it does. It's beautiful. It's not. It could be saccharine or a bit on the nose, but the performances are so good. Particularly Cate Blanchett, she's fantastic in this. That it never stops feeling very real.
Yeah, and I will just say as well, Todd Haynes is the director of a film that I've had on my bucket list that I don't know why, I've just never been in the mood to watch it, and it's I'm Not There. You know, was
that the Joaquin Phoenix one?
No, you always think it's Joaquin Phoenix because he did the Johnny Cash Walk the Line. It's about, like, it's basically six people play different aspects of Bob Dylan's.
Oh, it's the Bob Dylan one. Yeah. Okay. I've never seen that either. Actually, that always seemed really interesting.
Yeah. So that's one that I've always intended to watch, but just haven't yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not that familiar with most of Todd Haynes' work. I think I've maybe seen one or two of his films before, but I couldn't tell you what they were off the top of my head. But if this is anything to go by, it's well worth checking out. I think this is on Amazon Prime as well, so well worth seeing if you have access to it. Right, okay. I think very quickly we're just going to go through a couple of movies that we're maybe keeping an eye on this week.
So you might notice that I didn't watch any of the ones that I was keeping an eye on.
Oh, no. I mean, guys, this isn't a contract we're signing here, all right? I watched Tenet, all right? Out of the goodness of my heart, I said I was going to watch Tenet, and I did. I didn't watch any of the others because one of them's a Danish movie that's I'm not able to watch legally in the UK, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Well, I will just say,
excuse me.
I'm sorry if everyone's screaming at the screen right now. I wanted you to watch Benjamin Button. I'm gonna have Benjamin Button as my first one this week. I'm still gonna try and watch it. Okay, so that's my first one.
There was a good discussion about David Fincher actually, and I didn't realize that was a David Fincher movie. And one of our commenters helpfully pointed out that is in fact what it is, which makes me a lot more likely to watch it.
Yeah, who pointed that out actually? Was it Ted Vic Disco?
No, it was
Brandon, maybe?
Yeah, I
Steven?
think it was.
Maybe
I think
Brendan.
it was Brendan. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, that'd be cool. I'm very interested in watching it again. I haven't seen it since the cinema. That's my first one.
Okay, nice.
You want my second?
Yeah, just hit me with all of them if
Okay,
you've got
okay,
them.
yeah. Okay, so Avatar, because we just mentioned that. Now I really want to watch it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Watch it in 3D.
yeah. I'm gonna make Zahelu with Avatar so hard, right? So I'm gonna watch Avatar. I don't really have another one, to be honest with you. If I think of another one while you're talking, I'll say another one. But that's
Okay,
probably...
no, that's absolutely fine. I've got three. I can't actually promise. There's one of these I'm definitely going to watch because I'm interested. But the three I'm going to try and watch is Wonder Woman 84 because a lot of people are talking about it. It doesn't sound very good, but I feel like I should probably see it.
Okay.
New Mutants. You probably can't see behind me, but I have a lot of X-Men comics behind me. I'm a massive X-Men fan. I have X-Men tattoos. So
Is that on anything? What's that on?
The new I don't know what the New Mutants is. It
Yeah.
released in cinemas and then it just kind of disappeared. So I
Yeah.
need to find somewhere to get that. I presume it's probably available for rent.
Okay.
But yes, I'm going to check out New Mutants. And the last one is Lars von Trier's Dogville, which I only mentioned because the cinematographer who worked on Dread also worked on Dogville, and it's basically Lars von Trier's like Dog Me 95 movement taken to what sounds like it's logical extreme, where there's no set. It's just an open sound stage with the set marked out in chalk on the floor.
I've heard of this, yes.
Yeah, it's because Dog Me 95 is basically everything that you shoot should be available in the scene, and it should be. There's no technical.
Is Nicole Kidman in that?
Yes, yeah, Nicole Kidman's the star. So and this is like the extreme version of that, where it's like we're not only are we not going to have any special effects or any ADR or sound outside of the recording, we're also just not going to have a set at all. We're just going to have the actors on a soundstage. So I'm going to check that out, I think.
Lars von Trier is really interesting. Like, just like I don't want to elaborate here, but there's an interesting thing of like I think it was maybe Uma Thurman possibly, and they were going to film her. They were going to film her watching a film. No, sorry, they were going to film her going into. They had to film her walking. The scene was like 20 seconds. Walk into the kitchen, light a cigarette, and like just do a little 20-second scene of whatever. Right? That was the thing. They set the cameras up in the kitchen. Right? Lars von Trier wanted a particular mood. Right? So I think it might not have been Uma Thurman, but I think it was. They set it up and what he did was he said, right, you watch this film. Everyone had to sit on the set while she watched the film, got into a particular mindset through watching the film. Then when she finished the film in her own time, walked in to the kitchen, and then the cameras were rolling and they shot the scene.
Yeah, that sounds like Lars von Trier. I mean, I've not really seen that much Lars von Trier stuff, to be honest, but I'm aware of his way of working. And he is like one of the most auteurish auteurs working today, and not necessarily in a good way, but
just saying that made me think of my third one, which I'll try and watch. I saw in the cinema and I absolutely loved it, and it's Shia LaBeouf's redemption. LaBeouf, or whatever you call him. It's his redemption. It's Honey Boy, which is sort of it's a bio. Have you seen it?
No, it's on my Amazon list. Like, it's the one where he like plays his own dad.
He plays his own dad. Yeah, it's like a biopic. Yeah, and the reason why that put in my mind to watch that because I love that film. He wrote the script and all. The script of that film was actually written based on essays that he wrote while he was being treated for PTSD in a mental institution. Right?
Yeah, I've heard really good things
exposure
about that
therapy.
movie.
He had to write everything that happened to him as a child out, and then he based the film on these essays that he wrote to get through it. Right? And it's just I find him such an interesting character. Obviously, he's had his issues with certain racism and things in the past when he was severely in the worst moment of his life. You know, again, I think that he's worth a bit of redemption. He's got PTSD. It's a great film. But the reason I mention that is because the reason why I realized that I want to watch it again is because he in that film tried to bring in aspects of Lars von Trier's style. So the reason why I even know that story about the TV and then the kitchen is because they were sort of doing similar things in that film. And like he would go and smoke a cigarette and then come in to start the scene. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I've had that one on my radar for a while. I haven't got round to it, but yeah, you have to let me know what you think of it because.
Oh no, I've seen it. But
you have already seen it.
I want to watch it again. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, if you do rewatch it, we'll talk about it here on our next one of these, which is going to be in 2 weeks' time, folks. Because remember, next week we are going to be doing our themed episode. It's going to be presidents in movies.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's going to be a lighthearted thing, as we've said before. But yeah, so really, if it's not, it's fine. We'll give you a brief escape from the nightmare that the world has become.
You will have to hear us doing probably a lot of JFK impressions. Like there's gonna be some crazy impressions going on.
Like, do my Richard Nixon. I can't do it too hard because my headphones will come off to do my Richard Nixon impersonation, which is basically just Richard Nixon from Futurama. But yeah, okay. So I think that's pretty much going to do it for us this week, folks. Which leaves us really with just one simple question to answer, and that is, Anthony, what is your favorite movie?
Avatar.
Great choice. My favorite movie is in honor of MF Doom, who unfortunately we found out passed away a couple of months ago, The Fantastic Four, but not the Miles Teller one because that's shit. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the description below, down there. And yeah, thank you for watching. Share the show with your friends, like, subscribe, do all that business, and check us out next week for our themed episode on movie presidents. Until then,
and cut.